Well, this Sunday, it marks the beginning of Peg and I's 11th year with you as pastor and partner. And to be with you, some will be glad. And that's all right. And to be with you has been a tremendous, great blessing. And we thank you. Thank you. So I say to you, well, July Sabbath is a good time to reflect on the blessings and who you are and where you are going. This was part of my own Sabbath experience. Spent time with my parents. My father and I and my brother, we went to the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village in Dearborn, and as we walked through the exhibits, it would raise memories, and my father would share stories and things that we had never heard before. A blessing indeed. And this was part of my own Sabbath experience, as well as trying to do some worship preparation, some reading, some other things. Reconnect with Peg. There's a lot to be done on a Sabbath. I remembered also, as I know that the first Sunday in August kind of marks an anniversary in my mind with you, I remember when Josh Parnell first contacted me from Shadow Rock Search Committee, and he said our covenant is very important to us. And it would be important for you, Ken, to familiarize yourself with it. And so I did. And so I'm going to say a line, and then I want to hear you repeat it. Here we go. We covenant one with another.
We covenant one with another.
To be that sensitive and responsive part.
To be that sensitive and responsive part.
Of human society.
Of human society.
Which perceives and responds.
Which perceives and responds.
To God's newest thrust.
To God's newest thrust.
In the midst of history.
In the midst of history.
The uniqueness and greatness of every life.
The uniqueness and greatness of every life.
Is radically affirmed.
Is radically affirmed.
Our task together.
Our task together.
Demands a comprehensive view of life.
Demands a comprehensive view of life.
Always pointed intentionally to the future.
Always pointed intentionally to the future.
Our life together.
Our life together.
Involves us individually and corporately.
Involves us individually and corporately.
In study and worship.
In study and worship.
Always maintaining a proper balance.
Always maintaining a proper balance.
Between proclamation of the Word about life.
Between proclamation of the Word about life.
With the deeds which make life good.
With the deeds which make life good.
These activities.
These activities.
Which eliminate age barriers.
Which eliminate age barriers.
Cut across religious dogma.
Cut across religious dogma.
Reduce cultural parochialisms.
Reduce cultural parochialisms.
And engage secular people.
And engage secular people.
With life's ultimate possibilities.
With life's ultimate possibilities.
Will be worthy of our best efforts.
Will be worthy of our best efforts.
When I read this over 11 years ago, a couple of things stuck out for me. First, there's a lot here. And a lot to unpack. And yet, not a lot left open to interpretation. In fact, I mean really just the opposite. A lot left open to interpretation. The Apostles' Creed and the Nicene Creed lays out doctrine that intentionally minimizes any room for interpretation, but the Shadow Rock Covenant It very much is expansive. It's an expansive minefield of interpretation. And I like it. And second, there's a fair amount of plagiarism in our covenant. There are large phrases taken out of essays from theologians of Paul Tillich, Rudolf Bultmann, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and H. Richard Niebuhr. Broken phrases stitched together from the most influential theologians of the 20th century to make a patchwork quilt of meaning, to create a North Star, a compass for our fellowship. And I like it. Third, Jesus and church are never mentioned. God is mentioned only once. Our covenant is not doctrinal. It is providential. It assumes the presence of the divine in the underlying structures of life itself, who is emerging out of every moment of life and directing history to the fulfillment of peace and justice. Like the book of Esther, where God is never mentioned, but God is assumed, it leaves us with a challenge. Esther came to understand that it was a time such as this to risk and save her people that she was born. And so in the spirit of Esther and our covenant, we say at the end of our service every Sunday, these are the times, and we are the agents. We do that because God is assumed. And for such a time as this, we are born. I like it. I like it a lot. Now, many friends and members think Shadow Rock is just another church with diluted expectations and a watered-down theology that allows us to be easygoing and non-judgmental. The opposite is true. Not that we're judgmental. But it is far from a watered-down theology. It is a very mature theology that demands maturity from its membership and its friends. We have the hard work and the privilege and the joy to discern God's newest thrust in the midst of history. God's newest thrust against the powers and the principalities that would diminish human life. How many of you have seen in the past week on the news or in social media the powers and principalities that have diminished human life? Who has seen it? We stand against it. We stand against such power, and we live the alternative reality of the kingdom of love. We work to do that here, among and with each other. So how we treat each other, how we talk to each other makes a difference. Because if we can't do it right in here among each other, we certainly can't do it right out there where it is needed the most. So we work at it. And we hold each other accountable to it. There are a lot of assumptions here in our covenant. And assumptions do demand faith. But faith is not taking the scalpel to our brains and giving intellectual assent to stupid propositional statements. Faith is not believing. Faith is trusting. It is deep trust. It is trusting that God is in the underlying structures of reality. Faith is trusting that there is more to life than we can see with our eyes, touch with our hands, or measure with our sciences. Faith is trusting in the more of life and in the hidden wholeness of life, despite the surface fragmentation of life. Faith is not an intellectual assent to the impossible. But it is trusting that with God all things are possible, and the impossible is being worked out in God's time and in God's way. This is what makes us people of God and distinguishes us from all other human constructed for-profit and non-profit organizations. Organizations are always in need to revisit, re-energize, and renew their vision statements. The human side of our own institution is no different. But we began the process at a different place. God's church does not have a mission. God's mission has a church. And it is for such a time as this that our fellowship is created and reborn. Over the next year, our board and our staff, and eventually our entire congregation, will be going through a visioning process that will renew our self-understanding, clarify our brand, reorganize our infrastructure, and empower us to execute God's mission. We will be using tools and facilitators from secular profit and non-profit sectors. And such tools will be a great help to us. And they've already been a great help to me. However, we should never lose sight. That our authority, that our power is faith-based and faith-driven. And that we partner with God, however you understand that, in God's newest thrust in history. The language and the tools from the secular people will be a great help. But we also have something to offer them. We have something powerful to offer secular people. Remember? We are charged to engage secular people with life's ultimate possibilities. Sometimes we think too small. Sometimes we think the powers and principalities of this world are too strong. They're like the legend in Scotland. There's giants in the hills, and you can see their heads poking over the mountains. But when you get to the other side of the mountain, they have these really little stick bodies, and they're nothing. That is what it means to be faith-based, and I like it.